All right, welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be talking some Giants with no other than the host of the Talkin Giants podcast, Justin Penik. Thank you for joining me today, talking some Giants.
Let's do it. No pun intended. That's what I always say. Let's talk some Giants. No pun intended. No, but James, thank you for having me on. We were just saying before we press record, it's always nice to do these, appearances or whatever interviews, whatever, and the teams win it. The Giants are winning, and that's first time, at least in my, my media career, that this has been happening. So happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And big fan of the stuff. And if anybody wants to go check it out, he's got his podcast, Talking Giants. And it's always good, basically, I would say daily content, kind of, really, hourly content, always updating on the Instagram, Twitter. You can check them out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But yeah, let's get right into it. Let's talk some Giants. You were there opening week, and the big video. You did not go there to lose. It blew up, and it was awesome. That win, I think, really just started the shock of the New York Giants. Really, what they are. 7-2 going into week 11 now. Did you think in that game when you were there after that win that they would be 7-2 at this point in the season, or did you think like, hey, I'll take that win?
No, I did not think they would be 7-2. Really, at that point, like, you have your Monday thoughts, which is just victory Monday. Holy crap, we did it. And then by Wednesday, I'm thinking, please don't make that Tennessee game and that missed field goal and that 2-point conversion. Brian Daboll showing off, the day balls of steel. Don't let that be the moment of the season. Like, we look back and 2019, it was it was Daniel Jones's his debut, his first career game. That was the big moment. 2021, we had the Saints game. I mean, the Giants have been so bad over the last couple of years that there's really only one game and one moment of a season that really makes it feel like, oh, I'm a fan, and it just pure joy. I didn't want that to be the only moment. So really, that's what I was thinking of as, the week following that Tennessee game. And then lo and behold, I don't know if there's ever been a moment that's like top that, just like, whoa, like that moment. But the fact that we've been able to stack these wins together, and I think especially in London, London was really cool doing that on not a primetime stage, but a national stage, since that's the only game that's happening at 9:30 in the morning. The London win was really, really cool. Just to get the rest of the world watching the Giants do that against Packers.
Yeah, and I think you were talking about it a little bit before too, before we clicked record, that you're still realistic. This Giants team I'm not going to say that they're one of the best teams in football, but their record does show that. So I am going to it is pretty cool. It's nice to see that, New York is also doing well. Like the Jets are also doing well. So it is nice, but they are 7-2. So they are kind of legit. I mean, the point differential obviously isn't as nice as you want to see, but the strategy of winning games, Brian Daboll getting them into the fourth quarter and then taking it from there, letting the other team lose the game rather than the Giants really winning. It's been working, and that formula has done really well. And Brian Daboll, since he's come in here, fans have loved him, ripping into Daniel Jones on the sideline. And, that's really, I think, when it started. And then, going for two, like you mentioned, in that opening week against Tennessee, it really started this whole entire fan base getting behind their new head coach. Everybody loves him. So I want to hear through his first 9 games as the Giants head coach. What do you think? What have you seen from Brian Daboll besides the energy that he brings? What do you think that Brian Daboll brings to this New York Giants football team?
First of all, just they find a way to win, which you talked about. Which, I mean, that at the end of the day in the NFL, I mean, if you just want to just how do teams work, how do teams not work, you win or you lose. And certainly, we felt a certain way about Joe Judge. The main difference between those two guys is that Brian Daboll is winning, and he's winning in his first year. I love the offensive concept stuff. It's really, really cool. Their commitment to run the ball, knowing their personnel as well, where, coming into this year, we're kind of contemplating, and this is a wild thought to think of now. We're contemplating, does Saquon Barkley get above 1,100 rushing yards? That was something that we were contemplating. I mean, he's going to get above that within the next couple of games here, and there's still 8 games that are left in this season. So he's going to get above that total. But we were talking about that because we were thinking that this is going to be an offense that's going to throw the ball. We were still thinking that Kenny Golladay was going to maybe be involved, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard. We knew the wide receiver depth chart could have been a little bit more injury prone, but still, because of Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll, we thought that even if the wide receiver depth chart would look a little weird, that they would be throwing the ball since they came from Buffalo, they came from Kansas City. But they have flipped it on its head. They have flipped it on its head where these pass-heavy coaches, Daboll and Kafka, which I do think that there is part of them that does want to throw it more, throw it down the field more. They're flipping it on its head, and they're doing exactly, and it's funny, they're doing it what Garrett and Judge wanted to do last year. They're doing exactly what they wanted to do. So they're knowing their personnel, they're knowing their team, they're knowing that they have Saquon Barkley at running back, and they know that they have Andrew Thomas at left tackle, and they're letting him cook as well. And they're adjusting. They're adjusting, and Wink Martindale adjusts every single week as well. So, Brian Daboll bringing in Wink Martindale, and then also Mike Kafka was kind of like the wild card bringing him in. I think both of those guys have complemented each other very, very well.
Yeah, and you mentioned Wink Martindale, and going off him, him coming from Baltimore, I believe, right? Wasn't he with Baltimore before? Mm-hmm. The defensive energy that Baltimore has always had with the years that he was there, it showed. It showed Baltimore has always had one of the better defenses in the league. And then you come here in this Giants defense, when you look at it, they don't really have stars. There's young players, young pieces, like, for example, Xavier McKinney, obviously a young player, bye week, getting a little out of hand. It happens, I guess, but he's got I'm sure the talent is there for Xavier McKinney. And once he realizes that, I think that stuff will clean itself up. And then Julian Love, he was a late round draft pick, I believe a 4th or 5th round pick. And now he's starting to really gel into like a leader, into not only a leader on the field, but off the field as well. Mm-hmm. And then also Kayvon Thibodeau. I mean, he's not getting the sack numbers that he predicted himself in the beginning of the season, but he's still making an impact rushing the quarterback, and it's helping. So with this Giants team, I don't really see a guy on the defense where I'm like, wow, but at the end of the day, they're still second in the league in third down stops.
That's been the craziest thing this year. I do think a huge part of that is Dexter Lawrence. I think Dexter Lawrence, you mentioned how there's not a lot of stars, and you're right, but Dexter Lawrence is the star. And I think he's on this Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons, Jonathan Allen, Aaron Donald's always on his own tier, but you talk about the difference makers at interior defensive line. Dexter Lawrence is it. He took over the Houston Texans game. I think that Texans game is a lot closer. Now the score was close, but I think the Giants just kind of controlled the game from start to finish. I think the game, we feel a lot more tense about it if Dexter Lawrence is not on the field, having these insane pressures. According to Next Gen, he had 11 pressures. That's the most that an interior defensive lineman that weighs over like 320 pounds has had in a game. He broke his own previous record this year when he had 10. So Dexter Lawrence is breaking his own records out here that he's setting for pressures and getting to the quarterback. And also, Dexter Lawrence was known as kind of this run stopper who, will get pressure on the quarterback every once in a while, but he's still doing really well against the run. And the Giants are averaging like almost 5 yards per attempt on the ground that they allow more compared to when he's on the field or off the field. Like the Giants rushing defense is bad when he is off the field. So Dexter Lawrence is that star. And right now for this entire defense, he is the kind of the fuel that's making this fire kind of go right now. So is the Giants defense good? That's the question.
Yeah, I think and Dexter Lawrence, it is really nice to see because last year, he ended up not even starting some of the games. I think he only started 10 games last year. And I'm not going to say people were thinking him as an afterthought, but, there was a little bit of question marks, him coming out of Clemson, is he going to live up to the hype? But now I think, he is living up. He's not living up. Well, yeah, he's living up to the hype. He's doing his job. And, He is playing like one of the top defensive linemen. He's right up there with all of them. And I do love to see that. When you look at his sack numbers, he's already got 5 sacks, and that's already a career high.
Yeah, it's a career
So,
high. Yeah.
so that's it, you love to see it. And I think, what do you think? Do you think Wink Martindale has to do anything with getting the most out of this defense? Because last year, obviously, Dexter struggled, and in some other areas, the defense was just awful last year. I mean, I think that's the best way to put it. It's been awful for a lot of years. So do you think, and it really hasn't had like Joe Shane didn't really change the roster that much. So how much credit do you credit to Wink Martindale and the other defensive coaches for this defensive production?
Yeah, I mean, I give Wink Martindale a ton of credit because, I mean, just look back to Houston. Davis Mills did not know what was coming. I mean, when Wink Martindale shows these cover zero looks where you have safeties that are standing up in the A gap and the B gap, you have interior linebackers that are lined up here. You have 7 guys that are lined up at the line of scrimmage. They could either all come or 4 of them can drop back or 5 of them can drop back. So you really never know what's coming. I mean, there are times where there's 1 interior defensive lineman on the field. There are times where there's 0 interior defensive lineman on the field. And you have 2 edge rushers, or you have 4 edge rushers and 2 interior linebackers, and Kayvon's dropping back in coverage a decent amount. These are just different looks, and they change it every single week. Wink changes it every single week, where particularly if you're a bad quarterback, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle. And even Aaron Rodgers, who is still a pretty solid quarterback, obviously having a little bit of a down year. But think back to that London game where Xavier McKinney gets that pass deflection on that 4th down. I mean, those were looks that they were kind of giving him all day, brings that pressure on that 4th down. Aaron Rodgers, doesn't really know that that's coming, takes a gamble, takes a risk, throws to that side. Xavier McKinney gets his hands up, and that's a Giants victory. So Wink Martindale is doing the most. Really, this entire coaching staff is doing the most with the least talent. I mean, just look at how many moves that they've made in season. Really, you kind of have to be like a niche Giants fan to really recognize the amount of moves that they've made in season with their pro personnel department, their post 53-man cutdown days. Henry Mondeau, who's an interior defensive lineman, was a practice squad guy that they picked up. Fabian Moreau, their starting CB2, he is I think right now he's their permanent starting CB2. Aaron Robinson, who was supposed to be their outside corner, he's out for the season. Jalen Smith, their starting Mike linebacker, he was a post 53-man cut down day move. Jason Penik, Tony Jefferson, these are all 53-man cut down day moves that they made, posts that they made. Landon Collins is up there too, but he's not really on the active roster. All moves that they've made, and these guys have gotten significant playing time this year, and they're doing well. They're doing well enough to keep this Giants defense afloat. So it's crazy impressive what the defense and how productive they've been able to be.
Yeah, and now just flipping from defense to offense. I mean, obviously, right off the bat, I think the guy that everybody knows is Saquon Barkley. He's already, like you mentioned, he's gonna break 1,000 yards, maybe even this week.
He should. The Lions are bad.
Yeah. So, and it's crazy to think about because, going into this season, like you said it, people were questioning, is Saquon, how does he fit on this New York Giants team? And obviously, a lot of it had to do with his health. Mm-hmm. But when he's healthy, you saw it in his rookie season, over 1,600 scrimmage yards, I think he had. And this season, he's well on his way, I think, to 1,600 again, as long as he stays healthy. But Saquon, this has really been not a turnaround year, but a comeback year for him. So what do you think Saquon has done besides staying healthy this year to really be one of the best, if not the best, running back in football right now?
That's a great question because you mentioned 2018, and people will say that this is the best year that Saquon Barkley has had since 2018. That's wrong. That is a very, very wrong statement. He is having a better year this year than what he had in 2018. Now, don't get me wrong. The offensive line, huge factor in that. Where maybe if you give Saquon Barkley 2018 the same offensive line, maybe he goes off even more. He also really did benefit from Eli Manning being checked down Charlie his final couple years, and he got a lot of work in the receiving game too. But what Saquon Barkley is doing this year, and this is different from what you saw, especially last year in 2021, and even his first 2 years where he was solid as a pro. You are not seeing negative or no gains. Most of the time that he is getting the ball in the running game, he is staying on schedule. He's getting 3, 4, 5 yards, 6 yards consistently. And also, the explosive play potential is still there. He's still getting the runs of 10 plus yards, 20 plus yards. Maybe not as many highlight plays as you saw in 2018, but when you choose to run the ball in the NFL, when you choose to run the ball, it's not, I'm certainly a throw the ball guy in the NFL, but this year, running the ball in the NFL is making a comeback because you are seeing how offenses are combating against what defenses are doing. Defenses are trying to limit the explosive pass play. So Saquon, when you choose to run the ball in the NFL, you want to stay on schedule and you want to stay on script. The worst thing you can do is you could turn a 1st and 10 into a 2nd and 10, or a 1st and 10 and turn that into a 2nd and 13, a 2nd and 12. It's like the worst thing you can do. But staying on schedule, the major difference between a 2nd and 10 and a 2nd and 6, or a 2nd and 5, or if you choose to run the ball on a 2nd and 10 and you're able to make that a 3rd and 5, a 3rd and 4, that is such a huge difference in the NFL. And then Saquon Barkley does have the ability and the potential to do this at any time, especially when he runs outside the tackles, to take it 10 plus yards, 20 plus yards, and flip the game script, take your team from midfield, put them in the red zone, or if you're deep in your own territory, get close to midfield. That stuff really matters. He's able to keep this offense on schedule, and the gritty Saquon Barkley runs, that is what I have been most impressed with Saquon Barkley this year.
Yeah, so I guess that leads into my next question. With his contract expiring, do you think that they should franchise tag him, give him an extension? Because obviously running backs, contract history wise, they get it and then they start to deteriorate.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. They get a lot of touches. But Saquon, I don't know, because really this is his 2nd full season if you kind of think about it, maybe even 3rd. So what would you do if you were Joe Schoen? Would you franchise tag him? Would you give him an extension, or kind of see how the rest of the season plays out?
It's tough. I honestly think this question is even tougher than Daniel Jones right now, which we are going to talk about Daniel Jones. But number one, I trust Joe Schoen. Like, if this were Dave Gettleman, I'm really shaking in my boots. I'm shaking in my boots being like, look at the Todd Gurley's of the world. Look at the Ezekiel Elliott's. Look at Christian McCaffrey. Maybe everybody besides Nick Chubb, maybe Dalvin Cook. You're looking at those contracts, those major big contracts that running backs got, and every team regrets them. Every single team regrets it every single time. So I trust that Joe Schoen is going to avoid that situation. But it comes to the point of, is Saquon Barkley looking for that? Is Saquon Barkley looking for the Ezekiel Elliott contract? Is he looking for the McCaffrey? Is he looking for the Todd Gurley type of contract? Where would he be willing to play on a Nick Chubb-like deal? Because I think that's the deal that everybody looks to that makes the most sense. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I would be okay with the 2-year deal and not okay with the 3-year deal, because there's so much what you can do with the player's contract. Like, there's so much that you can manipulate. You can front load, you can back load. I hope they don't back load. That is the one thing I will be upset with. You can front load, you can back load, you can do all this different kind of stuff that, a player will get his X amount of money at any given time, but it's just, how do you break it up that makes sense for a team? If it were me, I would love if he can play on the tag, but will Saquon Barkley play on the tag? So in my perfect scenario, I would tag Saquon Barkley, but for his own benefit, because I like the guy, I don't know if he's going to do that. And also, he may deserve, kind of a 2-3 year deal there that makes sense for both sides.
Yeah, it is a little bit of dilemma with Giants fans. Like, you want to franchise tag him, but at the same time, like, he is Saquon. You want to see him. You want to see him get his bag because he's been here and he's just a good dude, and on and off the field, he does everything right.
Yeah.
But another guy,
this team has just had a hard time extending its players too. So, how often do we see, like, even the good players that come out of the Giants once every few years? Landon Collins didn't extend him. Washington gave him a huge contract. Odell, we signed him just to trade him. We've had some interior defensive linemen that have been good for the Giants, the last couple years. Dalvin Tomlinson, he was a guy that we couldn't extend. So there's, the few players that are good on the Giants that we draft, we haven't been able to extend them and keep them on the team for a few years after their rookie contracts. So I think you're going to bring up Daniel Jones. So let's maybe get to him.
Yeah, DJ. Yeah, let's get offensively another guy who's doing the right things on and off the field. You know, in the bye week, he was there on Monday morning. I think I saw the report from Kim Jones saying that, you know, Daniel Jones was like one of the only Giants players that didn't go away during the bye week. He was in the building, studying film, trying to just get better. You know, anything that Daniel Jones can do to tell the New York Giants, hey, I'm fully locked in. I want to be here. It seems like Daniel Jones wants to be the quarterback of the New York Giants now and in the future. And, you know, this season, I got to say, like, he has been showing me a lot more. I was completely against Daniel Jones, to be honest with you. I thought by like week 6, Tyrod Taylor would be playing quarterback for this team. And by week 2 and week 3, I was like, all right, like maybe Jones can do it, because I feel like ever since he got ripped into on the sidelines by Brian Daboll, we've seen a completely different Daniel Jones, where it's all he has to do is not turn the ball over, obviously, and that's kind of been the whole entire formula for his successful season this year. But the O-line is still not great. He gets pressured almost more than any other quarterback in the NFL right now. And he's doing it without a lot of weapons too, receiver-wise. So really his best weapon is Slayton, Kenny Golladay, obviously, all the situations off the field with him, and on the field he can't even catch a ball. But you know, what have you seen from Daniel Jones this year that really turned him into last year, where he was a baby quarterback, to this year, well, now he's a NFL quarterback?
I'm going to be honest, and I don't blame anybody who maybe doesn't follow the Giants every day to think like, wow, Daniel Jones has like really taken a step up in his play. I don't think Daniel Jones has taken this massive step up as a quarterback this year. Now, that is not as dismissing Daniel Jones, saying that, oh, you know, he's not doing well this year. I just think the quarterback that we saw in 2020 and 2021, it was a similar Daniel Jones that we're seeing this year, but the main difference is Jason Garrett's gone. I hated Jason Garrett more than Dave Gettleman. I did not like Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman ruined the roster. Dave Gettleman's roster is the reason why, you know, Joe Shane isn't able to, you know, this Giants team maybe isn't even able to compete this year, because, you know, this is still mostly Dave Gettleman's roster here, right? But I hated Jason Garrett more, because I think Jason Garrett was forced upon Joe Judge and all these different things. And even though, like, you look at the advanced stats of Jones's season, the average intended air yards, his lack of deep attempts, those are things that we kind of complained about and targeted, you know, Jason Garrett, saying you have to let him throw deep, But the advanced metrics of EPA, you know, EPA, CPOE composite, like that has Daniel Jones from weeks 5 to week 10, where also Kenny Golladay has not been part of the offense, by the way. Like, when Kenny Golladay has not been on the field, Daniel Jones in this Giants offense has actually been a lot better. So I think Kenny Golladay should not see the field for basically the rest of this year. I don't care how much money he's being paid. The splits are there. The splits are very, you know, they exist. But, you know, for whatever reason, even though he's not throwing it deep down the field, the explosive passing plays aren't there. His efficiency is awesome. And it is like top 5, top 10 over the second half of the season so far. What does help is that they have a running game. You know, in this instance, you know, the run is maybe setting up the pass, but where Daniel Jones has been most impressive this year is on 3rd and longs. That is where the running game has not helped out Daniel Jones. And that is where, if the Giants are going to continue to take these steps up towards the second half of this year, they need to be better on early downs. They need to throw the ball more on early downs, because Daniel Jones has shown on these 3rd and longs. Think back to that Green Bay game, think back to the Baltimore game, and even this past week, the second half against the Texans. All these crazy nutso 3rd down conversions that this Giants offense is making. Now, the most predictable down and distance that an NFL team is going to throw the ball is on 3rd and long. You can say, oh, well, Justin, here's why they don't throw it on early downs. They don't throw it on early downs because they have a bad line and they have bad wide receivers. Both of those things are true. But if you're doing it well on third down, if you're doing well with conventional dropback passing on third down, where a defense knows exactly what you are going to do, and they're good with it, you would think that doing it on early downs would help more and it would be a little bit more unpredictable. So that is the next step that I want to see this offense, not Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has proven that he deserves more trust in this offense. Darius Slayton, I feel, has done enough to show that he deserves more trust in this offense. He has a career high catch rate. He's averaging over 60 yards per game, but he's only averaging like 3 catches per game. His yards per reception right now is the highest of his entire career. You drafted Wan'Dale Robinson in the second round, top 50 pick. I get you want to progress these guys along, but it's not like Wan'Dale Robinson's a scrub here. You draft him in the top 50. So I think there should just be more trust that's put in Daniel Jones's hands. And it's not necessarily because he's improved dramatically as a quarterback from the last couple of years, but he has improved in slight ways, and especially on those third and longs.
Yeah, and you mentioned Darius Slayton, and he's a guy that I personally have been a fan favorite of this year, just because he wasn't really, even now, I guess, but mostly in years prior, he wasn't really thought about as the guy in the receiver
People hate
room.
him.
Yeah, and like he wasn't being thought of as the guy, but I mean, this year, he's only 25 years old, so he's still pretty young. And 317 yards so far this season. And, he almost had 800 in his first 2 years. And then last year, obviously, was just, it was a rough season for him. But this year, but like you mentioned, though, Jason Garrett, Joe Judge, like it was a down year offensively for everybody on the Giants. So, but this year, new coach, it's just, he needs more targets, in my opinion. And like you said, I just think the Kenny Golladay situation it is messing everything up because he's getting paid. And Dave Gettleman has kind of just, like you said, he did ruin this team for Joe Schoen, and Joe Schoen is working his way around it now.
I will say, and this is just what happens in the NFL. If Dave Gettleman doesn't ruin this as much, if Jason Garrett doesn't ruin as much, if Joe Judge doesn't go on that 15-minute tirade last year saying why he deserves to stay, if those things don't happen, then the Giants don't get to a point where they hire Joe Schoen, where they bring in Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka, Wink Martindale, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm in a way, I'm thankful for all the stuff that went wrong because John Mara really did need that kind of reality check. But they're doing it. And I love that we're at a point now where the Giants are 7-2. And these are like nitpicking things that I'm talking about here. Not a lot of Giants fans are talking about, this kind of stuff. There's a lot of Giants fans will be like, well, we're 7-2. Why can't you just be happy? It's like, no, well, I want the Giants to do more. And, I wasn't really a fan of going out and trading for a wide receiver, this year, because I realized where the Giants are this year. And like, we are playing with house money. The Giants are playing with house money. But as long as they're playing with house money, why not? Like, why not try and go do something with the crappy cards that you got right now? So it's a really awesome spot to be in where we're 7-2. We're kind of nitpicking the offense here while we have an insanely good running game. And we're doing it, man. We're doing it.
Yeah, and I guess that leads into one of my last questions. So you mentioned you think that they can do it this year, and you want them to do it. Well, not think, but want them.
Of course.
Yeah. So I kind of think that they could, based off the defense that they have and just the mentality and the formula that they have won these football games. I think that they can float on with any team in this league and, just let the other team lose. But you did mention you want them to go big and you're 7-2. You're not Giants. When's the next time they're going to be 7-2? Even with a better roster. We don't know. So with Odell on the open market and him throwing the Giants and one of his 4 teams out there, getting all the fans going, getting really the whole entire media world just going nuts. Do you think that the Giants should go for Odell? And do you think Odell would want to come back to New York?
I think Odell would want to come back to New York because I think anywhere that he's wanted, he would want to come back to, or he would want to go to. But I don't think they're going to do it. And I also wouldn't do it either. I'm of the opinion and I'm of the belief And this has been the most annoying thing about social media this year as a Giants fan. We're 7-2, and we have a really, we have a solid winning team for the first time since Vietnam. And all I see every day is Odell Beckham Jr., Odell Beckham Jr., Odell Beckham Jr. And he's not on the team. Like, I get he was on the team. I get that, Odell Beckham Jr. was the Giants in the 20 teens, right? He was the Giants. And that is the reason why people clicked on to watch the Giants. And not just NFL fans, but for a good stretch of time, like Odell Beckham Jr. was the reason why people were Giants fans. And I guarantee you, Odell brought Giants fans to New York to root for the Giants. But if you're not on the Giants, like, this is just my thing as a fan. Like, I am a fan of the Giants. I'm not a fan of, I love Eli Manning, but even once Eli Manning retired, it's like, all right, I'm still a fan of the Giants. When these guys retire, when they're released, when they're traded, whatever, I am a fan of the Giants. If you are not on the Giants, you kind of don't exist in my brain. And since Odell was traded, mad about it for a week, all right, you don't exist anymore. So I don't think they should do it, man. This is a guy that's coming off 2 torn ACLs. And then also, people forget, I think he had a torn Achilles in 2017 too. He missed the entire season in 2017 after playing the first couple weeks in that disastrous season. He tore his Achilles too. That was the first injury that he had. And then he tore 2 ACLs in like consecutive, years too. So I don't think the Giants are in the spot where they're ready to do that. The Rams, they were in that spot last year. The Bills, they're in that spot this year. But I want the Giants to play with house money, because when you make a move like that, you're no longer playing with house money. You have put an expectation. You have put, I think, an unrealistic expectation too on the roster and on the team that if the season ended in a bad way, it would feel disappointing. I don't want, when this Giants season ends, I'll be disappointed that it ends that day. But then again, look back in a week from then, I think it'll be like, you know what, that was cool. Like, if they make the playoffs, and even if they lose like that wild card round, that'll be like, that was really effing cool. That team with that roster, those coaches, whatever, that they were able to do that. But if you sign Odell, the expectation changes immediately. So I'm not really for it. And also, I think he wants a multi-year deal.
Yeah, which is weird. It's
do
like,
not do that if you're any team, not just the Giants.
Yeah, and I think the way that he would come back to the Giants is on a multi-year deal. And the only way that I would sign him personally is if it was 1-year deal, like how the Rams got him last year. Rental, help us win. And also, this Giants team, I also agree, bringing him in rises the expectations 100%. But also, I feel like it would kind of put pressure on Daboll, to kind of really use him.
Oh yeah,
a lot.
Totally.
So would we see less touches from Saquon? Would we see more throws over the middle, more that Daniel Jones can probably make but necessarily shouldn't throw?
Yeah, you start telling Daniel Jones to force the ball somewhere. That interception rate and that interception percentage that's below 1% right now. I mean, this is inevitably for any quarterback. This isn't just a Jones thing. He has the power and the discretion, Jones, especially on these third downs, to do what he wants and do what's open and read the field and read the defense. You start telling a quarterback, well, don't really read the defense anymore. You kind of just have to target this guy. It complicates things. And especially, it'll be November, December. We're in November. It'll be December by the time that he's really ready to rock and roll and he knows any kind of sliver of the playbook. And we're in December, and now, he is a new wide receiver 1. It's like, that's tough.
Yeah, and lastly, just to end it, Philadelphia Eagles, Monday night, they showed the world that they are beatable, and the Giants are now only 1 game back. So, I mean, they still have a tough schedule remaining. They're still going to have Minnesota on their roster. They play Philadelphia twice.
Good defenses, yeah.
Yeah, the schedule is definitely heating up, which is why I personally think this week is a must win against Detroit, although it's not going to be a cakewalk because Detroit can put up points.
Yep.
But the Giants are good at they're good at getting third down stops. So as long as they keep continuing to get stops on third down, I think they should win. But the division is wide open now with the Eagles losing, and they still got them twice. So do you think that it's realistic that New York can possibly sneak a division title this year? Or do you think it's more realistic that they get a wild card spot or even fade out?
No, I think they're in the playoffs. I mean, without a doubt. I think they're in. They have a wild card. I think they're even 2 games above the 49ers, who have the last playoff spot. You know, and you got to think about 49ers are still playing the NFC West. They're still playing the Seahawks, and they're still playing the Cardinals, who could be a little fugazi and stuff like that. But the Eagles are still playing the Cowboys. All these teams are still playing each other, so you never know exactly what's going to happen. Especially the Giants. I mean, the Giants haven't played the Commanders or Philly yet, and then they have Dallas on Thanksgiving, which I think they are inevitably going to lose. I'm afraid of Dallas. Like, if there's a team that I don't want in the playoffs, like Dallas, because of their defensive line, and they run misdirection on offense with their running game. And if you run if you want a way to beat this Giants defense, run misdirection. Call bunch of guys going horizontally pre-snap. It'll confuse these linebackers, Jalen Smith, Micah McFadden, Tate Crowder, who's been benched, which is crazy. All these guys will get confused, and then there'll be wide open holes for you. So there you go. They're going to get a wild card. But if they introduce more downfield concepts, and if they start throwing the ball more on early downs against these good defenses, because the Commanders have a very good run defense, the Colts have a good run defense that's on the Giants schedule. There's a couple of Washington and Dallas and Philly. They have bad run defenses, but their passing defenses are good. You need to be more balanced. You need to be more balanced as you start approaching these really good defenses that you are going to play. So if they can introduce more downfield stuff and throw more on early downs, Giants have a shot at the division too. They do.
Yeah, I love to hear it because as a New York guy, I am completely against Philadelphia. And it was so nice to see them lose, even though it was Washington. But it was also nice to see Ron Rivera get that dub. Much needed for him. But thank you for joining me, Justin. I really appreciate you coming on, giving your insight. If anybody wants to know more about the Giants, give them a follow on Instagram, Twitter. I know you guys got a Facebook.
Yeah, we're on Facebook too, and I'll even plug this too, because since this is like our next project, JM Football, Jomboy Media Football, on Instagram, on Twitter, and especially YouTube. Check out the YouTube. We post a bunch of shorts, and then Bobby Skinner also does some longer film breakdowns a couple times a week as well. So if you're an NFL fan and not necessarily just a Giants fan, you never know when we're gonna cover your favorite team, or Bobby will talk about it, do a film breakdown on one of your favorite players. So Jomboy Media Football, JM Football, go check it out.
Thank you, and thank you again for joining. That's Justin Penik of Talkin Giants, Jomboy Media, and that's it. I'm signing out, and let's go Giants this week against the Lions.